Everyone turned their heads when Elijah Walker walked into the exam hall that day, not because he was loud or flashy or causing a scene, but because he wasn't supposed to belong there, at least not in their eyes. At this elite Northeastern university, where legacy names and Ivy League connections were worn like invisible crowns, Elijah, a first-generation black student from the south side of Chicago, stood out without saying a word. He'd earned his scholarship, beaten the odds, and carried the pride of his entire neighborhood on his back. But none of that mattered the moment one accusation shattered it all. It started with a whisper, as these things always do. Someone said Elijah finished the advanced economics final too fast. Then someone else said his answers were too perfect. Within hours, a professor filed a report, suspected academic dishonesty. No one confronted him. No one asked him. They just flagged it, logged it, and summoned him to an academic integrity hearing. Elijah didn't even know until he got the email. Subject line, Notice of Formal Investigation. He thought it was a mistake. A glitch. Maybe someone else named Elijah Walker? But no. His student ID was listed, along with a case number and a date for the hearing. The notice didn't say what evidence they had, just that he was accused of using unauthorized materials during the final. Elijah's hands shook as he stared at the screen in the library. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not after everything. He'd studied harder for that final than any exam in his life. He'd locked himself in the dorm study room for days, skipped sleep, skipped meals, rewrote every concept in that textbook in his own words until he could teach it blindfolded. And now they thought he cheated? No, they believed he cheated. Because they never gave the benefit of the doubt. Not to someone like him. The following week, word spread on campus. Not officially, but enough to feel the stares, the whispers in the dining hall, the subtle unfollows on social media. Elijah's white roommate, Nate, tried to be supportive, at first. But even Nate started avoiding eye contact, keeping his door closed more often, saying things like, "It's just a misunderstanding," with the kind of voice that already assumed guilt. The final blow came when Elijah's academic advisor, Professor Rourke, told him in a meeting, "Look, I've seen cases like this before. If you come clean early, they'll go easier on you." Elijah couldn't even speak. Come clean? For what? For studying until his eyes bled? For refusing to fail? The truth was, they didn't want to believe someone like him could excel without help. Because excellence without privilege made them uncomfortable. He knew it, and it burned. The day of the hearing came fast. He wore his only suit, pressed and clean, the one his mother sent from home with a note tucked in the sleeve. "Hold your head high, baby. They don't get to break you." He walked into the hearing room and immediately felt the chill. A long rectangular table. 3 faculty members on one side, a student representative on the other. No one smiled. A university lawyer sat stiffly, shuffling papers. A projector screen was already loaded with what they called evidence. Elijah was told to sit across from them, hands on the table, like a defendant in a courtroom. He glanced around, no parents allowed. No outside attorney. Just him. Against the system. The first image shown was his answer sheet. Next to it, a flagged document from the university database. "We cross-referenced Elijah's answers with a source document found in an online tutoring service," one faculty member said. "There's an 89% match with the model answer." Elijah blinked. "I've never used that site," he said. "I didn't even know it had our material." They didn't flinch. "The match is statistically improbable," they said. "Combined with your time to completion, 42 minutes for a 2-hour exam, we find these results highly suspicious." Elijah looked at the screen again. The model answer was close. Uncannily close. But not identical. He spotted at least 3 conceptual explanations he'd worded differently. "I studied from Professor Kim's practice problems," he explained. "They were on her class site. I even emailed questions to the TA. Check my inbox." They nodded, but their eyes said they'd already decided. One panelist leaned forward. "Elijah, academic integrity is the cornerstone of this institution. It's important to be honest, especially now." He wanted to scream. What part of this wasn't honest? He'd done everything right. He even had printouts of his handwritten notes, dozens of pages, color-coded, dated. Luis, a friend from the tutoring center, even vouched that Elijah had tutored others for this exact exam. But none of that made it into the official record. It was like shouting the truth into a void that had already sentenced him. Just then, A voice interrupted from the back of the room. "Excuse me, Chairperson, this evidence doesn't add up." Everyone turned. A student had entered the room, uninvited, holding a laptop and breathing hard. It was Maya Brooks, student council leader, honors scholar, and editor of the Campus Truth blog. She wasn't even supposed to be there. The lawyer stood up. "This is a closed proceeding. You can't." "I'm not here to testify," she said. "I'm here to show you what someone else didn't want you to see." She plugged in the laptop to the projector. The screen flashed. What she showed next made every faculty member sit upright, and made Elijah's heart stop. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. The moment Maya Brooks plugged her laptop into the hearing room projector, the air seemed to thicken like a storm was gathering inside 4 institutional walls. Elijah sat frozen, his heart pounding louder than the dull hum of the ceiling lights. The faculty panel stiffened. The university lawyer leaned forward, expression tight with confusion and rising alarm. "This is highly irregular," the chairperson said. But Maya didn't flinch. She looked each person at the table square in the eye and said, "What's highly irregular is what I found in the university's own internal data logs." Then, with one click, she brought up a screen full of code, lines of back-end server logs and digital forensics timestamps. Most people in the room didn't understand what they were looking at. But Elijah did. And by the way the color drained from the university lawyer's face, he understood too. "This," Maya continued, "is a server access log from the university's academic platform. It shows that the model answer for the economics exam wasn't posted online until 2 days after Elijah submitted his test." The room went completely still. "That's impossible," one panelist said. "We were told the answer document existed beforehand and was copied from." "Exactly," Maya replied. "That's the lie. Someone edited the metadata to make it look like the document predated the exam. But this," she pointed at the screen, "this is the raw timestamp from the hosting server. It clearly shows the upload date as after the exam." She pulled up the file hash data and continued. "And here's where it gets worse. The document was uploaded by a user account tied to an off-campus IP address. That IP matches multiple upload attempts flagged by our IT team just last week for suspicious behavior." Elijah blinked. "Wait, you're saying someone forged the document?" "I'm saying," Maya said calmly, "that someone created the model answer after the exam, uploaded it to a sketchy tutoring site, then retroactively used it to frame Elijah." The room burst into overlapping voices. The chairperson called for order, but the silence that followed was no longer the smug silence of assumed guilt, it was fear. Fear that someone had been caught tampering with academic records. Elijah sat there, stunned, his palms sweaty but his head finally lifted. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't alone. He'd been set up. The lawyer regained composure quickly. "That doesn't prove who created the document," he said sharply. "Even if your timeline is correct, it's possible that Elijah himself—" "Don't," Maya cut in, her voice like steel. "I ran the digital fingerprint. The metadata trail includes a user token that ties back to a faculty login, someone with upload credentials. I cross-checked it against a list of system administrators. And I found a match." She clicked again. A name appeared on the screen in bold. Assistant Professor Brian Lyle, Department of Economics. The room erupted. Elijah's eyes widened. Professor Lyle? He was the one who had pulled Elijah aside weeks earlier and congratulated him for his insightful class participation. He was the one who said, "It's good to see students like you making the most of this opportunity." He was the one who signed off on the exam. The panel demanded quiet. The lawyer began stammering about context and data misinterpretation, but Maya wasn't done. "I'm not just here with logs," she said. "I have the screen recording from when the document was created. Our student cybersecurity team found it cached in a cloud drive Professor Lyle forgot to log out of. It shows him copying answers from Elijah's actual exam. Yes, we verified the file hashes into a new document, then uploading it under a fake name." One panelist stood up. "This is a criminal offense." Another whispered to the others, "We need to suspend the hearing immediately." But Elijah wasn't celebrating. Not yet. His hands were shaking, not from fear anymore but from something deeper, righteous fury. They tried to bury him. They were ready to fail him, expel him, ruin him. Based on a lie. A lie they didn't even bother to investigate because it was easier to assume he didn't belong. Easier to believe that a young black student from the South Side couldn't be brilliant without cutting corners. But then something strange happened. One of the faculty panelists, Dr. Jordan, a tenured professor known for staying neutral, spoke up in a shaky voice. Maya, how did you even know to look into this? These aren't files that students should have access to. Maya paused. Because someone tipped me off, she said quietly. An anonymous message came to our campus blog inbox with just one line. Elijah's being set up. Look into the logs. I thought it was a prank. But the more I looked, the more I realized. She didn't finish her sentence. But her eyes told the rest of the story. Someone inside the system had seen what was happening and risked everything to stop it. The panel adjourned the hearing to conduct an emergency review. Elijah was escorted out, still technically under investigation, but now with a whisper of hope. Outside the room, students had begun to gather. Word traveled fast. The rumors of cheating were now being replaced by murmurs of sabotage. Maya walked out beside him. You okay? She asked. Elijah nodded slowly. I don't know what just happened. But, thank you. Don't thank me yet, she said. This isn't over. If Professor Lyle did this, there's no way he acted alone. Elijah's heart sank again. You think it goes deeper? I think, she said, glancing back at the closed hearing room door, this wasn't the first time. And if we dig, we might uncover a pattern. Elijah felt the old fear returning, but this time, it was mingled with purpose. Because if this had happened to him, it could happen to others. Maybe it already had. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift black voices and expose hidden truths. 3 days passed. Elijah didn't go to class. He didn't eat much. He barely slept. Though the academic hearing had been abruptly suspended after Maya dropped the digital equivalent of a nuclear bomb, Elijah still hadn't received official word about what would happen next. He walked around campus like a ghost, watched, whispered about but not spoken to. The same students who once asked him to study together now crossed the quad without looking up. Rumors still floated, tangled between truth and silence. Elijah had cleared his name in front of that committee, or at least cast serious doubt, but no one had said the words, "You're innocent." There had been no apology. No retraction. No update from the university. Just more waiting. Meanwhile, Maya was working like someone chasing a fuse before it hit the powder. She hadn't stopped digging. When Elijah met her at the campus cafe, far off from the main library where they could speak in peace, she had bags under her eyes and folders stacked like bricks in front of her. I found something, she said without even saying hello. Elijah blinked. What is it? She opened her laptop and showed him a spreadsheet. Remember how I said I think this wasn't the first time? He nodded. Well, I cross-checked the university's records over the last 5 years. Academic misconduct charges by race, department, and outcome. The numbers made Elijah's stomach turn. Black students, she said slowly, make up 7% of the student body, but 42% of all cheating allegations in the last 5 years. Elijah stared at the screen, jaw tight. And white students? They make up 52% of the student body, but only 18% of the cheating reports. And get this, white students caught in similar situations were given reduced penalties or cleared completely if they claimed they didn't understand the rules. But for black students, she paused. Most were suspended or expelled. No hearings. Just decisions. Elijah rubbed his hands together to stop them from shaking. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. Maya nodded grimly. It gets worse. I looked up Professor Brian Lyle's caseload. You weren't the first student he accused. 3 others. All black. All in the past 2 years. 1 dropped out. 1 transferred. 1, she hesitated, attempted suicide. Elijah's heart dropped. Jesus. It was buried, Maya said. They called it unrelated stress. But I spoke to that student's old RA. He said the kid was devastated after Lyle accused him of plagiarizing something he wrote from scratch. Sound familiar? Elijah sat back, stunned. Why would he do this? What does he get out of ruining us? That's the question, Maya said. And I think I found part of the answer. She pulled up an email thread. I used to contact in the IT department. Totally off the books. They found old archived emails. Lyle had deleted them, but they're still on backup servers. He was corresponding with someone at a private admissions consulting firm. Elijah squinted. Like those companies that help rich kids get into schools? Exactly. This one's called Ascension Pathways. They specialize in academic crisis solutions. Basically, they get students cleared of misconduct, or create openings when needed. Elijah's eyes narrowed. Openings? Like removing scholarship students to make room for paying ones. Lyle's emails show him discussing quotas, space allocation, and, get this, minimizing liability through soft removals. Elijah felt heat rise in his face. They were getting rid of us on purpose. And making it look like we failed ourselves, Maya said. Academic assassination. Elijah stood up and began pacing. We need to take this to the media. Or file a report with the Department of Education. Or, wait, Maya said quickly, we can't go public yet. Not until we get the proof. What more do we need? The payments, she said. We need a money trail. If Lyle was working with Ascension Pathways, there has to be compensation somewhere. Maybe not to him directly, but to a family member, a shell account, something. If we can prove he profited from kicking you and others out, then it's not just misconduct, Elijah said. It's fraud. Exactly. But that's when Maya said something that made Elijah pause. There's one problem. We can't access the payment systems. They're stored off campus on a private cloud server, and only one person has the credentials. Elijah looked at her. Who? Dean Elbridge. The name hit Elijah like a slap. Dean Thomas Elbridge. The man who had shaken his hand during orientation, smiled during scholarship dinners and told him, "We're proud to have you here." The man who signed the paperwork for the academic integrity hearing. You think the dean is involved? I don't know. But he knows something. And if we can get into his office, we might find the login credentials we need. Elijah hesitated. You're talking about breaking into the dean's office? Not breaking, she said. Just looking. His assistant is off Fridays. Security rotates every 2 hours. There's a 10-minute window between shifts. Elijah laughed nervously. You sound like you've done this before. I write for the Truth blog, Maya said with a smirk. I've done this before. That Friday they met after dark. Maya brought gloves. Elijah brought nerves. They moved quickly using side doors, slipping past cameras, avoiding motion sensors. The office was quiet. Too quiet. The carpet muted their steps as they reached the dean's door. Maya pulled out a slim metal tool. Watch the hall, she whispered. In under 30 seconds the lock clicked. They slipped inside. The office was sleek, mahogany furniture, glowing plaques, and shelves of pristine books no one had ever opened. Maya moved straight to the computer. He's got a fingerprint lock, she muttered. We need something physical. Elijah scanned the room and spotted a glass case with framed award certificates. Check that. Behind one plaque he found a small safe. Maya grinned. Jackpot. She typed something on her phone. Based on faculty records, his wife's birthday is 0819. Try it. Elijah turned the dial. Click. The safe opened. Inside was a small flash drive labeled Ascension. Maya held her breath. We got it. But just as they turned to leave, they froze. Footsteps. Then voices. 2 security guards. Maya mouthed, They're early. Elijah panicked. No windows. Only one door. And it was about to open. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Elijah and Maya stood frozen in the dean's office as the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, echoing down the polished corridor like the countdown to disaster. The office door creaked slightly as the doorknob twitched from the other side. Maya's eyes darted to Elijah. In her hand was the flash drive labeled Ascension. In his, still partially open, was the wall safe they'd cracked open just seconds ago. There was nowhere to run. No time to hide. Then, like a burst of divine timing, the motion-activated printer in the corner suddenly whirred to life, spewing out paper from an unrelated print job someone had sent remotely. The sound startled the guards, who paused mid-conversation. One mumbled something about a maintenance glitch, and turned away, muttering about checking the copy room. The doorknob stilled. Elijah and Maya didn't breathe until the footsteps receded again, swallowed into the distant clatter of the hallway. "We have maybe 90 seconds, Maya whispered. "Let's go." They slipped out of the office, moving quickly and silently through the dark corridors until they emerged into the night, hearts racing, lungs burning with adrenaline. Only when they reached the student union building, empty this late, did they stop. Elijah stared at the flash drive. What if it's nothing? Maya didn't blink. Then we're back to square one. But if it's something, it's everything, Elijah finished. They didn't wait. Back in Maya's dorm, they booted up her encrypted laptop, connected the drive and waited. The folders loaded slowly at first, then faster. Over 200 documents, each labeled with cryptic names: ACIR04, X-Transfer Ledger, Integate 2023, LilaCcom.pdf. It didn't take long to figure it out. Payment records, memos, internal communications. It was all there. Ascension Pathways had paid off faculty members, including Lyle, to remove scholarship students under fabricated academic violations. The files showed conversations referencing eliminating high-risk scholarship demographics, soft removals through policy abuse, and, most chillingly, cost efficiency through reduction of non-legacy representation. One memo referred to Elijah by name. Maya scrolled faster, her hands trembling. They knew. They planned it. You weren't just a casualty, Elijah, you were a target. Another folder contained invoices, undeniable proof that Ascension Pathways had wired consulting bonuses to a fake LLC owned by Lyle's brother-in-law. The dean? He had approved discretionary policy changes that gave professors near total power to flag students without oversight. Elijah couldn't speak. It was bigger than he ever imagined. They'd built an entire machine, quiet, systematic, and surgically designed to remove students who didn't fit the elite mold. And no one ever noticed because no one ever believed the victims. Until now. "We need to go public," Elijah said, rising to his feet. "Now." Maya nodded. "I'll prep a story for the campus blog, but this can't stay small. We need national eyes on this." Elijah grabbed his phone. He texted Luis, Nate, everyone he trusted. He called a civil rights attorney his mother once told him about. He messaged alumni. "We're taking this everywhere," he said. They wanted quiet. They're about to get a storm. That night the blog post went live. Within 24 hours it went viral. Within 48 hours major outlets picked up the story. Elite university under fire for alleged targeting of black students in academic scandal. Whistleblower reveals shocking bias, fraud at top-tier campus. Systemic erasure of first-gen students? A hidden crisis exposed. The university scrambled. A neutral third-party review was announced. Brian Lyle was placed on administrative leave. Dean Elbridge made a vague statement about commitment to equity and taking the claims seriously. But behind the scenes, chaos reigned. Elijah's inbox exploded with messages, some from students who said they'd been afraid to speak up, others from angry faculty, and even a few from anonymous sources offering more dirt. One email stood out. No sender. Just the subject line. "You think this stops with Lyle?" Elijah clicked. Inside was a single file, a transcript of a secret meeting. Faculty names redacted. But the content was chilling. It discussed the long-term strategic partnership with Ascension Pathways, a plan that went back 6 years. Elijah stared at the screen, gut twisting. Multiple departments were involved, Maya said, reading over his shoulder. This wasn't one corrupt professor. It was a network. And that's when it hit Elijah. If we only take down Lyle and Elbridge, they'll replace them. Quietly. The system will protect itself. He sat back. We have to blow the whole thing open. Maya narrowed her eyes. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we need to go bigger. A public hearing. A press conference. Force them to face this under national pressure. But how do we get access to that kind of platform? Elijah didn't answer immediately, because just then his phone buzzed. A new text message. Unknown number. Read. I have the original contracts. Meet me. Alone. Tonight. Attached was an address. The old student archives building. Abandoned for years. Maya read it too. Elijah, this could be a trap. He stared at the message, his pulse quickening. Or it could be the final piece we need. The cursor blinked on the screen. The truth was close. But some people would kill to bury it forever. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. The air outside the old student archives building was thick with silence and suspicion. The place had been shut down for years, once the heart of campus records, now nothing but a forgotten shell on the edge of the university grounds. The broken window panes reflected the half-moonlight, and the rusted sign swung gently in the wind. Elijah stood there alone, clutching the flash drive that had blown open the truth but still left too many unanswered questions. He checked his phone again. The message was still there. I have the original contracts. Meet me. Alone. Tonight. The sender was anonymous. No traceable number. No way to verify if it was legit or a setup. But Elijah couldn't ignore it. Too many people had suffered in silence. Too many had been crushed, expelled, erased. If there was one last piece that could bring the entire corrupt machine down, he needed it. He pushed open the door. It creaked like an old confession. Inside, the building smelled of damp paper, mildew, and secrets buried in dust. His footsteps echoed as he walked through the abandoned hallways, past empty shelves and crumbling boxes labeled Archives 2008, Admissions Review 2010, and Legacy Records. Then from a back room a voice, "Close the door behind you." Elijah turned sharply. A figure stood in the shadows, hooded, faceless. But the voice was unmistakably human. And afraid. "You came alone?" Elijah nodded. "You said you had proof." The figure stepped into the light. She was older than Elijah expected, late 40s, maybe 50s. A university employee? Former administrator? Her badge was hidden, but her eyes showed the weight of someone who'd seen too much and stayed quiet too long. "I was a compliance officer," she said, "until I realized compliance meant silence." She handed Elijah a thick manila folder and a thumb drive. "This is everything. The full contract between the university and Ascension Pathways. It outlines the payment plan, the removals, even performance-based bonuses tied to student realignment outcomes. That means, the more underprivileged or high-risk students they displaced, the more money they earned." Elijah opened the folder and scanned the top page. University letterhead. Signature from Dean Elbridge. Terms clear as daylight. This was no conspiracy theory. This was fact. "Why give this to me?" he asked. "Why now?" She looked at him, eyes welling. "Because when I watched your hearing and saw that girl Maya stand up, I realized, the kids have more courage than we ever did. And I can't live with this guilt anymore." Elijah nodded slowly. "Thank you. This is everything." "Be careful," she warned. "They'll try to discredit you. They'll try to spin it. But if you go public with this, all of it, they can't bury it anymore." She left before he could ask her name. By morning, Elijah and Maya had everything organized. They didn't go to just the blog this time, they went national. They gave the entire story, files, timelines, testimony, internal memos, server logs, whistleblower contracts, to a top investigative news outlet. And they leaked the story simultaneously to social media, alumni groups, education watchdogs, and civil rights organizations. The story exploded. CNN, MSNBC, NPR, and the New York Times all ran features. A full-on federal investigation was launched. Within 48 hours, Dean Elbridge resigned under pressure. Professor Lyle was arrested for fraud and falsification of academic records. Ascension Pathways' entire operation was shut down by the Department of Justice. The university president issued a public apology and launched a multi-million-dollar equity review initiative. But more importantly, Elijah's name was cleared. His record was fully expunged, and he was publicly acknowledged by the board as a student who had been wrongfully accused and targeted. But he didn't stop there. Together with Maya, Elijah launched a nonprofit. The Invisible Class, an organization dedicated to defending first-generation and marginalized students from institutional bias, academic sabotage, and systemic erasure. They created a national hotline, a student protection legal fund, and a transparency watchdog site for reporting unfair academic practices. Donations poured in. Within months, the organization had chapters on 40 college campuses. Students began to speak out. More stories surfaced. Elijah found himself no longer at the center of one story, but the beginning of a movement. In a live interview aired on national TV, the host asked him, "Elijah, after everything they put you through, What would you say to the students who feel like they don't belong? That they'll never be enough? He looked into the camera and didn't blink. I'd tell them, the system was built to make you feel like you don't belong. But the truth is, you scare them. Your brilliance scares them. Your perseverance, your creativity, your presence, it threatens everything they built to keep people like you out. But if you keep showing up, if you speak, if you fight, they can't erase you. And he meant it. Because they tried. They tried to bury him. But they didn't know he was a seed. Never let someone else define your worth. When systems are built to silence you, your very existence becomes resistance. Truth has a way of rising, and sometimes, the most powerful weapon against injustice is simply refusing to back down. Stand. Speak. Fight. Because when you do, you don't just survive, you lead the way for others. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths.